name is Hugh Garhead. I work as a project manager for KSite Technologies for almost 2 years. I have a total 9 years of working experience, and in terms of project management, I have 5 years of experience.
In the workplace, I've had experience managing projects such as the onboarding projects for new hires. And more recently, I would call out, and this is where I will talk a little bit more on later, especially on launching out our chat services throughout the entire organization.
So my experience is basically talking about how we deal with the customer. That's very important. Understanding the most important part about the project is first step, right? Is to truly understand the requirements of the customer and what is the success criteria end of the day when you complete the project.
First of all is to identify the stakeholders of the projects. Stakeholders are those that will be impacting or be impacted by the project. So if we don't identify them in the early stage of the projects, we might miss out the requirements from the stakeholders, and it will get messy during the execution and the closing phase of the project because we don't meet some of the requirements. Then secondly is the poorly defined of goals and objectives. If the goals and objectives are not defined among the team members, then no one will know what's the ultimate objective of the projects, and it might not be successful in the end. The third will be a scope creep, means that the scope gets out of the initial objective of the project. So this is quite dangerous because stakeholders might adding in more items to the scope of the project, and the project get out of track from the initial scope. The fourth is getting commitment of team members. As a project manager, we need to work with a lot of cross-functional team members, which some of them are not reporting to me as a project manager. They have their own functional managers and they have their own day-to-day tasks to support. So it's a challenge to get commitment from team members to work on the project and make it successful. Number 5 will be the risk management of project. I would say that most PM will miss out this part, as not all stakeholders or not all PMs are focusing on risk management. Risk management is critical and is important because if you don't manage the risk well enough, when it occurs, then it will be a threat to the project. And lastly is miscommunications. Communication is important in project. We need to update the stakeholders on the status, or we need to get the requirements from the stakeholders as well. So all communications must be recorded down. If not, then it will be a challenge, and in later stage of the project, it will be getting a lot messy.
I would list down 3 common challenges that I face in running projects, especially more in the context of the organization. Number 1 is stakeholder alignment. What's important here is from the beginning of any project at all, it's important that we have multiple alignment sessions with all our stakeholders. So identify our stakeholders, make sure that all of them, especially our team members who will be part of the project, are aligned in terms of what our deliverables. Secondly, the constant challenges that I'm facing is changing priorities. So we have scope that are constantly changing, requirements that are changing, right? What I would look at is to chunk it down into smaller goals, have separate deliverable windows, so that we can have multiple releases to attend to these changes. And lastly, here I would call out the lack of accountability or ownership from the team members. So more often than not, people come into a project, they take on different roles within a project, and they just focus on it. What is lacking here is the big picture mindset, right? So the challenge for us here is to continuously engage with them, have dialogue with them, so that they can always see the bigger picture and not just from the smaller scope of where they're operating.
Well, talking about challenges, well, first of all, in a project, we always talk about triple constraint. We talk about the triple constraints are talking about the time constraint, the cost constraint, and the scope constraint. So if you ask me about challenges, I would say probably I can share 3 types of challenges in these areas. So in any project that we do, there's always a constraint of these 3 areas that form a triangle, right? That's what we call a triple constraint.
Try to explore the PMI, PMP certifications, which you will be exposed to the knowledge areas that is structurally outlined by the PMBOK, we call it PMBOK, in the PMI, PMP certifications. It gives us a wide perspective of how we should manage a project. There are 10 knowledge areas in that I won't go through in this interview, but it's a good start that everyone who wants to consider to be a PM, or you have to handle a lot of project management in your day-to-day tasks, it's a good start where you can explore in this. Okay, thank you.
Well, firstly is to focus on the end in mind, be clear of our deliverables, what are the goals, what do we want to achieve, what success looks like, and how do we measure the impact of the projects that we're making. Secondly, we need to make sure that we keep everyone informed, all our stakeholders. What I've mentioned earlier, know who are our stakeholders, keep them informed of our progress, and by doing that, we are actually keeping everyone aligned in terms of where we are heading. At times in the midst of a project, direction of the organization may change. Therefore, by having these check-in moments will actually help us to align our priorities, to align our thoughts. And the last thing here that I would want to say here is that be prepared to invest time in engaging others. And what I mean by engaging others is you're expected to influence others, to coax others to take action, to provide clarification to others. So all in all, a lot of time needs to be invested in engaging others.
Okay. Right. So my advice to those people who want to explore project management is a fantastic position. I've read somewhere in the Project Management Institute journal that project management jobs or openings is going to be double or tripling over the years. So, but again, in whatever field that you go into, learn enough that it qualifies you to be a good, credible project manager.